Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience. Captain Zarin Aver stood at the viewport of the Solaris Dawn, his gaze fixed on the distant, twinkling stars that made up the galactic frontier. For over a decade, the coalition had held its borders firm, refusing to venture into the dark regions of space known as the Void. The Void was an uncharted, enigmatic stretch of space, a place of forgotten empires and hidden dangers. And yet, Zarin felt drawn to it. The Coalition's fears were well documented, humanity's history of conflict, their penchant for survival at any cost. The Void, they had said, was too dangerous, especially for a species like his. Humanity had been isolated for their aggression, feared for what they might become. But Zarin knew something was different. He could feel it in his bones, in the whispers of forgotten civilizations. "We're nearing the frontier, Captain," called out Lieutenant Cora Drell, her voice calm yet alert. The asterisk Solaris Dawn's sleek, angular frame hummed with power, its systems preparing for the unknown. "Anything on the sensors?" Zarin asked, his tone measured. He wasn't nervous. He'd been beyond the frontier before, seen things most Coalition captains only whispered about. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that something out there had been waiting, watching. "Nothing yet, but I'm picking up faint signals. Could be interference from the Void's energy fields," Cora replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. Zarin nodded. It was always the same with the Void, interference, distortions, and an eerie stillness that set the crew on edge. But this time, the signals felt different, like a warning. "Keep an eye on it," he said, turning back to the viewport, "and prepare the crew for the worst." As the Solaris Dawn drifted closer to the frontier, the stars outside seemed to dim, swallowed by the black expanse ahead. Zarin felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Whatever was waiting beyond those stars, it wasn't friendly. The warning lights flashed red. Cora's voice broke through the silence. "Captain, we've got movement! Unidentified ships inbound!" Zarin clenched his fists. "Raise shields, prepare weapons, let's see what we're dealing with." The darkness outside shifted, and from the shadows, sleek angular ships emerged, alien vessels, their hulls black as the Void itself. They moved with precision, silent and deadly, like predators stalking their prey. Zarin's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't the usual skirmish with Void pirates or wandering rogue fleets. This was something else, something far more dangerous. "Engage evasive maneuvers!" Zarin barked, his voice cutting through the tense silence. The Solaris Dawn lurched to the side as the alien ships closed in, their energy weapons flaring to life. Bolts of plasma cut through the Void, slamming into the Dawn's shields. Cora's fingers flew over the controls. Shields holding, but they're not going to last forever. Zarin's mind raced. These ships were nothing like the ones he'd faced before. Their movements were too coordinated, too fast. They weren't scavengers or pirates. They were hunters. "Return fire," Zarin ordered. The Dawn's weapons roared to life, beams of energy lancing out toward the enemy ships. A few of the alien vessels peeled off, but most pressed forward, unrelenting in their attack. "Captain, we can't win this fight head-on," Cora warned, her voice tight. "We need to fall back." Zarin knew she was right. There were too many of them, and their firepower was overwhelming. But he also knew that running would only delay the inevitable. These ships weren't here by accident. They were waiting. They knew the dawn would come, just as Zarin had feared. "We're not retreating," Zarin said, his voice grim. "Not yet. Plot a course toward the nearest nebula. We'll use it to mask our signature." Cora hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Aye, Captain." The Solaris Dawn veered sharply, speeding toward the dense cloud of gas and dust in the distance. The alien ships followed, but Zarin hoped the nebula would give them the cover they needed to escape. As they entered the swirling mass, the alien ships hesitated, their sensors confused by the nebula's energy distortions. Zarin allowed himself a small breath of relief, but he knew they weren't safe yet. "What the hell are these things?" muttered Lieutenant Voss, the ship's weapons officer. "They're not Coalition, that's for sure." Zarin didn't respond immediately. He had his suspicions, but he wasn't ready to voice them. The Void was filled with ancient forgotten races, some of which had disappeared long before humanity ever reached for the stars. Could these ships be remnants of one such race, returning from the shadows? Before he could dwell on it further, Cora spoke again, her voice tense. "Captain, I'm detecting something deeper in the nebula. It's big, really big." Zarin frowned. "On screen." The view shifted, revealing a massive structure hidden within the nebula's swirling clouds. It was ancient, its hull covered in strange, angular designs that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. "That's a warship," Zarin said, his voice low. "An ancient one." Voss whistled. "I've never seen anything like that before." Zarin's gut churned. This was no coincidence. These alien ships, this ancient warship, it all pointed to something much larger, something that had been hidden in the void for centuries, waiting to be awakened. The ancient warship loomed before the Solaris dawn, its colossal frame casting long shadows across the nebula. Zarin's hands tightened around the edge of the command console. Every instinct in his body screamed that they should turn back, that whatever this ship was, it was dangerous. But he knew they couldn't leave. Not now. "We need to scan it," Zarin said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I want to know what we're dealing with." Cora hesitated. "Captain, if we get any closer, we might trigger something. The ship, it's dormant now, but who knows what could happen." Zarin nodded, understanding the risks, but they had come too far to turn back now. Whatever this ship was, whatever it had been built for, it held the answers they needed. "Do it," Zarin ordered. Cora tapped a few keys, and the Solaris Dawn's sensors reached out toward the ancient ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the consoles began to light up, data flooding the screens. "This thing's old," Cora muttered, her eyes scanning the readouts. "Thousands of years old, maybe more, and its power systems, they're still active, barely but enough to keep the ship alive." Zarin frowned. "Alive?" Cora nodded. "It's more than just a ship, Captain. It's like a living organism, part machine, part something else." Before Zarin could respond, the ship's alarms blared. "Captain, the alien ships, they're moving in, fast!" Voss shouted. Zarin's eyes darted to the viewport. The sleek black ships that had pursued them were now closing in on the warship, their weapons charging. "Damn it!" Zarin cursed. "They were protecting it. They're trying to stop us from waking it up." The alien ships swarmed toward the ancient warship, moving with purpose and deadly precision. Zarin watched as the black vessels maneuvered with alarming speed, cutting through the nebula's interference with ease. The fact that they hadn't attacked immediately made Zarin suspicious. They weren't here to destroy the Solaris Dawn asterisk. They were here to protect the warship, the silent guardian of whatever secrets it held. "They're not firing on us," Voss noted, his voice a mixture of confusion and curiosity. "Why? They had us in their sights." "They're waiting," Zarin said, narrowing his eyes at the screen. "They want to see if we'll retreat. They don't want us anywhere near that warship." "What do we do, Captain?" Cora asked, her hands poised over the controls. "We're outnumbered, and that ship, it's not just ancient. It's alien technology we don't understand." Zarin considered his options. He could order a retreat, but that would leave the mystery unsolved and the danger untouched. If this warship truly held the key to the Void's secrets, turning back now would only delay the inevitable. No, they had to see this through. "Voss, prepare the weapons, we might not have much time," Zarin said, his voice hardening with resolve. "Cora, take us in closer to the warship. We're going to dock." "Dock?" Cora echoed, her voice incredulous. "Captain, we have no idea what's inside that thing. It could be a trap." "It could be," Zarin agreed. "But we won't know unless we get on board. And if those alien ships are so determined to keep us away, that means there's something they don't want us to find." Cora hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Aye, Captain." The Solaris Dawn moved toward the massive warship, its engines humming softly in the silence of the nebula. The alien ships hovered nearby, watching, but not engaging. It was as if they knew something the crew of the Dawn didn't, something that made them wary of firing first. As the Solaris Dawn approached the warship's surface, Zarin could see the intricate, almost organic designs carved into its hull. The alien vessel looked ancient, but it pulsed with a faint, eerie light, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. "Docking sequence initiated," Cora said, her voice tense. "There's an airlock on the starboard side. I think we can make the connection." Zarin nodded. "Do it, and be ready for anything." The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged, securing the Dawn to the warship's hull. A low hiss filled the air as the docking tube extended, sealing the two ships together. Zarin turned to Voss. "You're with me. We're going in. Cora, stay on the bridge and monitor the alien ships. If they make any sudden moves, you let us know immediately." Voss grinned, his hand already resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "You think there's anything still alive in there, Captain?" Zarin gave him a grim look. "I hope not." The air inside the ancient warship was cold and still. Zarin and Voss stepped through the docking tube, their weapons drawn and their senses on high alert. The interior of the warship was vast, its corridors wide and curving, with walls that seemed to pulse faintly with a strange bioluminescent glow. "Creepy," Voss muttered, his voice low. "It's like the ship's alive." Zarin didn't respond, his attention focused on the faint hum of energy that seemed to resonate through the walls. This ship had been dormant for thousands of years, but it was still functional, still waiting for something or someone. As they moved deeper into the ship, Zarin's eyes scanned the alien symbols etched into the walls. He couldn't read them, but they felt familiar somehow, as if they held a warning or a message left behind by the ship's long-dead creators. "Captain," Voss said quietly, pointing ahead. "You see that?" Zarin followed his gaze and saw a large door at the end of the corridor. It was massive, made of a strange black metal that shimmered in the faint light. The door was sealed, but there was a faint hum of energy coming from beyond it. "We need to get inside," Zarin said, moving toward the door. Voss examined the control panel next to it, his brow furrowed. "This tech is way beyond anything I've seen. If I try to force it open, we could trigger something." "We don't have a choice," Zarin replied, his voice steady. "If this ship holds the key to what's happening in the void, we need to know." Voss nodded, pulling out a small device from his belt. "All right, here goes nothing." He pressed the device to the control panel, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, the door began to slide open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. Zarin stepped inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The room was vast, its ceiling high and arched. In the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, a cylindrical pillar that pulsed with energy. Strange, angular symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the darkness. "What the hell is that?" Voss whispered. Zarin approached the pillar, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. "I think this is the ship's core, its power source." Before Voss could respond, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The pillar began to glow brighter, and the symbols on its surface shifted, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. "Captain, we've got a problem!" Cora's voice crackled through the comm. "The alien ships are moving in, fast!" Zarin's heart raced. "Get the Solaris Dawn ready for immediate launch. We're coming back!" The ground shook again, more violently this time. The pillar in the center of the room pulsed with energy, and the symbols on its surface began to shift more rapidly. "Captain, I think we woke something up," Voss said, his voice tight with fear. Zarin's gaze snapped to the pillar as a low, resonating hum filled the chamber. The warship's ancient systems were coming back to life, and whatever they had triggered wasn't going to stay dormant for long. Zarin and Voss raced back through the warship's corridors, the floor trembling beneath them as the ancient vessel began to stir. The walls pulsed with light, and the hum of energy grew louder with every step they took. "Captain, the alien ships are closing in!" Cora's voice was sharp in Zarin's earpiece. "They're powering up their weapons." "We're almost there," Zarin panted, his heart pounding in his chest. "Get the ship ready for immediate launch. We're not sticking around to see what happens next." As they reached the docking tube, Zarin glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see the alien ships cutting through the warship's hull. But it wasn't the alien vessels that worried him now. It was the warship itself. They had triggered something inside it, something ancient and dangerous, and he had no intention of finding out what that was. The Solaris Dawn shot through the nebula, its engines roaring as it fled the ancient warship that now pulsed with an ominous light. Behind them, the alien ships were closing in, their sleek forms cutting through the cloud of gas and dust like predators on the hunt. "Captain, they're gaining on us!" Cora's voice crackled through the comm, tension seeping into her usually calm demeanor. I don't know if we can outrun them. Zarin Avor tightened his grip on the armrest of his chair. The alien ships were faster, more advanced, and there were too many of them. But he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. They had come too far, uncovered too many secrets to be taken down now. Get us into the asteroid field, Zarin ordered. We can use the debris to slow them down. Cora nodded and adjusted the ship's course. The Solaris Dawn veered sharply, heading toward the dense cluster of asteroids that floated just beyond the nebula. The alien ships followed, undeterred, their weapons lighting up the darkness behind them. Shields at 30%, Voss reported, his hands flying over the weapons console. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Zarin's mind raced. They were running out of time, and they couldn't keep running forever. The alien ships weren't just trying to destroy them, they were trying to prevent them from escaping with the knowledge they had gained. The warship they had found wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a weapon, a key to something far more dangerous than anyone in the Coalition had ever imagined. Voss, get ready to fire on my mark, Zarin said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Cora, plot a course out of the asteroid field. We need to make a jump as soon as we clear the debris. Aye, Captain, Cora responded, her hands moving swiftly over the controls. The ship shook as another volley of plasma bolts slammed into their shields. The alien ships were relentless, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Zarin could see the dark shapes of the enemy vessels darting through the asteroids, their weapons glowing ominously. Now! Zarin shouted. Voss fired, and the Solaris Dawn's weapons lit up the asteroid field. Beams of energy lanced out, striking several of the alien ships and sending chunks of rock and debris flying into the void. Two of the enemy vessels exploded, their wreckage spiraling into the darkness. But there were more, too many more. They're still coming, Voss growled, frustration and fear creeping into his voice. Zarin's jaw clenched. He had to make a choice. They couldn't fight their way out of this, not with so many enemy ships on their tail. And then it hit him, the realization that there was only one way to end this. The warship, Zarin muttered, his mind racing. It's still connected to the alien fleet. It's their control hub. Cora's eyes widened. You're not suggesting— We don't have a choice, Zarin interrupted, his voice firm. If we can disable the warship, we cut off their command structure. It's the only way we survive this. Voss shook his head. Captain, that ship is a relic. We have no idea what it's capable of. You saw the power it holds. It could tear us apart. Zarin met his gaze, his expression steely. We're dead if we do nothing. If that warship wakes up fully, it won't just be us. The entire coalition could be at risk. For a moment, the bridge was silent, the weight of Zarin's decision hanging heavy in the air. Then Cora nodded, her expression resolute. I'll get us a shot. The Solaris Dawn swung around, its engines roaring as it headed back toward the ancient warship. The alien vessels, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver, scrambled to adjust their formation, but Zarin knew they were running out of time. The warship's core was glowing brighter now, its power rising with every second. Voss, target the warship's energy core, Zarin ordered, his voice steady. We're only going to get one shot at this. Voss hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Targeting. Locked. Zarin watched as the warship loomed closer, its ancient hull glowing with a strange otherworldly light. He could feel the weight of the centuries pressing down on him, the echoes of the forgotten civilization that had built this monstrosity. Fire! The Solaris Dawn's weapons roared to life, a beam of pure energy shooting out and striking the warship's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then with a deafening roar, the warship's core exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave rippled through the void, tearing through the alien fleet and sending debris spiraling into the darkness. Zarin held his breath as the Solaris Dawn rocked from the impact, alarms blaring throughout the ship. But as the light faded and the dust settled, the alien ships began to drift, their movements slow and erratic. Whatever connection they had to the warship was gone. We did it, Cora whispered, her voice filled with awe. We actually did it. Zarin exhaled, the tension in his body finally releasing. Get us out of here, Cora. Let's go home. Weeks had passed since the battle at the edge of the void. The Coalition had been hesitant to believe Zaren's report at first, but the data they had recovered from the warship was undeniable. The void wasn't just a place of darkness and forgotten ruins. It was a battleground, a reminder of the ancient wars that had shaped the galaxy long before humanity had reached for the stars. Zaren stood on the bridge of the Solaris Dawn, watching as the stars stretched out before him. The Coalition had asked him to return to the frontier, to continue exploring the mysteries of the void. But this time, they weren't sending him alone. Ships from across the galaxy were preparing to join the effort, united by the knowledge that something far more dangerous than humanity was lurking in the shadows. "The galaxy will never be the same," Cora said quietly, stepping up beside him. "We've stirred something up out there." Zaren nodded. "But now we're ready for it. We won't be caught off guard again." As the Solaris Dawn surged forward into the unknown, Zaren allowed himself a small smile. They had faced the darkness, uncovered its secrets, and lived to tell the tale. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that humanity and the galaxy would face it together, and in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.